In August of 1967, a team of researchers entered the remote Kipahulu Valley of Haleakala National Park. For the next month, they would explore this lush rainforest in search of all manner of plants, insects, birds, and whatever else they could find. For this expedition was the first comprehensive scientific exploration of the Kipahulu Valley, and it was designed to completely survey the valley's flora and fauna. It was designed to see what lived there, to understand the inner workings of one of Hawaii's last remaining intact rainforest ecosystems, and to make recommendations for how to best protect it. This was the Kipahulu Valley expedition, and what this team of researchers found, and what they recommended when they found it, is the very reason you are not allowed to enter the Kipahulu Valley today. So, many of you are probably familiar with Haleakala National Park, located on the island of Maui. It's most famous for people who go and see the sunrise and sunset, where you can get up above the clouds and take in the show up near the summit. You can also hike down into the crater from here and experience the stark and beautiful volcanic landscapes that the park has to offer. That's most people's Haleakala experience. That's the Summit District. But there's a whole other part of this park called the Kipahulu District, where our aforementioned Kipahulu Valley is located. If you've been to Maui or know anything about it, you'll know that this area is so much harder to access than the summit. It's clear on the other side of the island, and there's only two ways to get there, via the famous Road to Hana with its 600 plus hairpin turns, or on an unpaved, unmaintained route along the south part of the island. No matter which way you choose, though, it's hard to get to the Kipahulu District. It's just a very remote place. But the landscape could not be more different than the Summit District. Whereas the summit is characterized by high elevation, dry volcanic landscapes, the Kipahulu District is characterized by lush tropical rainforest with lots of waterfalls. It's honestly like two completely different parks. But it's really cool also because it allows you to see how these tiny little volcanic islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, with their insane variations in elevation, interact with the global wind and weather patterns to produce such different climates and ecosystems stuffed into such a small area. The reason the Kipahulu District is so much more lush and wet than the Summit District is because all of the prevailing weather systems from the Pacific slam into the steep cliffs of the east side of Maui and dump all their moisture, leaving the west side of Maui high and dry. This is also the reason why the east side of Maui has more biodiversity overall. The amount of moisture, combined with the changes in elevation, the Kipahulu Valley goes from like sea level to over 7,000 feet, essentially creates all of these tiny little microclimates, and then the plants and animals that live in them become specifically adapted to those microclimates, resulting in lots and lots of different species in lots and lots of different habitats. All right, keep that information in your brain for just a second because we're going to do a quick pivot to 1951. Because that's when the Kipahulu Valley actually became part of Haleakala National Park, way back when it was still technically combined with Hawaii volcanoes and managed under the umbrella designation of just Hawaii National Park. They wouldn't split up until 1960. This was a big deal. The Kipahulu Valley was basically undisturbed from the human impacts that had fragmented and destroyed much of the rest of the native ecosystems of the Hawaiian Islands. Impacts like cattle ranching, agriculture, and the introduction of invasive species. With the addition of the Kipahulu Valley to Haleakala National Park, one of the last remaining intact Hawaiian rainforest ecosystems was now protected forever. But nobody knew what was in this rainforest. Like, they didn't know exactly what was being protected there. They knew it was undisturbed and was likely to contain a high incidence of endemic Hawaiian flora and fauna, but they didn't know specifically what those flora and fauna were, which is why the 1967 Kipahulu Valley expedition was organized in the first place. This expedition was sponsored by the Nature Conservancy with support from the National Park Service, and its entire function essentially was to survey the Kipahulu Valley and figure out what lived there. They hired all sorts of scientists to come on this expedition and study all the plants, insects, birds, and whatever else they could find. It was a comprehensive survey of the plants and animals of the Kipahulu Valley. And boy, did they find a lot of stuff. 90% of the plants they found in the Kipahulu Valley occur nowhere else on Earth than on the island of Maui. Not like Hawaii as a whole, but specifically only on the island of Maui. They found 22 different species of Hawaiian fruit flies. They found birds that were previously thought to be extinct. The crested honey creeper, the Maui creeper, the Maui parrotbill, and the Maui nukupu'u. All of those today are either endangered or critically endangered, and the nukupu'u in particular hasn't been cited since 1987. Essentially, what these researchers found in the Kipahulu Valley was a refuge. A little biological island nestled on the remote slopes of eastern Maui. It was home to species found nowhere else on planet Earth, species that, should their remaining habitat be destroyed, would not be found on planet Earth at all anymore. Which is why, as part of their expedition report, the researchers proposed closing the Kipahulu Valley to visitors in order to preserve the rare and endangered species that were found there. Their recommendations were adopted, and to this day, only park managers and authorized research personnel are allowed to enter the Kipahulu Valley Biological Preserve. So yeah, that's the reason why you're not allowed to visit it today. Although it turns out closing the valley to visitors hasn't stopped humans from impacting the valley after all. Climate change is, of course, sneaking its tendrils into even the most remote corners of the planet, and the Kipahulu Valley is no exception. Rising temperatures and lower rainfall in the valley are creating conditions more favorable to invasive species, which outcompete natives and drive them toward extinction, ultimately. And the refuges that species could once have taken advantage of by just climbing to higher elevations to lower temperatures, well, they'll just eventually cease to exist as the temperatures continue to rise. And then there's the problem of avian malaria. Again, this is attributable to higher temperatures because mosquito larvae can now survive at higher elevations, and they're able to invade more and more habitats and infect more and more birds. So despite its closure to avoid human impacts, the Kipahulu Valley will continue to struggle into the future because of human impacts. Now, this is a tough situation. I'm not going to sugarcoat it here, but I don't want to leave you all with the doom and gloom to end the episode, so let's end on a more positive note, shall we? Because there actually is still a way you can experience the Kipahulu Valley, where you can get a tiny glimpse into this tropical wonderland. Following the 1967 expedition, the Nature Conservancy purchased 10,000 acres in the Kipahulu Valley, mostly down near the coast, and part of that was developed for public access. Lawrence Rockefeller donated a 58-acre parcel that included Ohio Gulch. Charles Lindbergh, the famous aviator, was involved with many of the fundraising efforts, and also a lot of local residents in the area either donated or sold their land for the conservation effort. After the land was acquired, it was donated to the National Park Service as part of Haleakala National Park, and created one giant contiguous protected area all the way from the highest slopes of the Haleakala volcano right down to the Pacific Ocean. Today, the Park Service maintains a trail in that area, which runs along the PPY stream to Waimoku Falls. It's a beautiful hike, absolutely gorgeous, one of my favorites in the entire national park system. It's only a little under 2 miles one way to reach the viewpoint for the falls, and once you get there, you'll notice all of that water is just flowing basically right over a cliff into this bowl-shaped valley that you've just been hiking into. Atop those falls and above those cliffs lies the Kipahulu Valley. You won't be able to visit it from here or even see it really because, again, it's on top of the cliffs, but you'll know it's there. And you'll know that it's safe and protected and preserved forever. All right, that is all I have for you today. I would love to hear if you've ever visited the Kipahulu district of Haleakala National Park. A lot of visitors don't make it to that side of the island, but for me, it's one of my favorite places in the entire national park system. Absolutely gorgeous and stunning landscape. It's a really special place, and yeah, I'd love to hear about if you've been there also. As always, direct support is always appreciated over on Patreon. Telling niche stories about the national parks isn't always easy on the internet these days, but I do work very hard to bring you these videos, and I do appreciate all the support that I get over on Patreon to keep the whole thing going, basically. So, yeah, Thanks so much. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.